Okay, higher historians, welcome to a short guide on how to answer explain questions at higher level. These are very similar to the ones that you would have done at National 5 if you have done National 5. It's one of the source questions that you're going to be asked out of 4 in the sources paper, so the Scottish paper or paper 2. It is the only one that you do not get a source for, so all of the information that you use in your explain question has to come from your own head. So you have to know this information in detail to be able to actually explain it to someone, and you're assuming that the person that's reading your answer doesn't know anything at all about whatever the question is, so everything that you're trying to explain to them has to be detailed enough for them to understand. So just as a quick kind of recap about the paper 2 questions and about the timings and things you should be aiming for each one. As we mentioned, there are 4 paper 2 questions altogether that you will have to do. All 4 of them will be on the Scottish topic, so unlike National 5 where you had inquiry questions on each of your topics, this year only your Scottish topic, which is Migration and Empire, is going to have questions on them. So there are 4 questions and there are 4 issues. So what you're really saying for this is you're likely to get at least 1 question on every issue that you study in the Scottish topic. The 4 questions that we have are explain, which is worth 8 marks, and roughly it should take you about 20 minutes to do this question. Just like National 5, we have how fully, it's worth 10 marks. So again, that should take you about 25 minutes to answer. We've got to evaluate the usefulness question, same as at National 5, should take you roughly about 20 minutes to answer and is worth 8 marks. And finally, a new question for this year is the how much question, which is worth 10 marks and should take you about 25 minutes to answer. The how much question we'll come back to in a bit more detail because we have seen the other 3 before at National 5 level. So it's just a little bit of a tweak to make them at higher standard, whereas how much we're looking at from a brand new perspective. So this year it's worth 8 marks for the explain question. You get 1 mark for each developed point that you make where you are explaining a reason and then you're giving a comment of some sort on it. It's not like National 5 where you would be able to get 2 marks for giving a comment with a sort of point and then giving an example as a development. This year you have to do both in order to get the mark. So this means that basically you need to have 8 things altogether to get all 8 marks for this question, which is quite a lot to remember, but you need to kind of think about this as the explanation being just as important as the knowledge that you're giving. So you put the knowledge point, but it's about explaining why it's relevant to the question that you're talking about. So just like National 5, we are going to use A, B, C, D to plan out our answer. Unlike National 5 where you could just do A, B, C and that was fine, this year the D has to be included. So we first start off with our A, which is our answer. So we name the reason and we use the wording of the question. We write the word because, or we introduce the because point, and then we write a comment. In the comment, we are stating exactly what the impact your answer actually had on the question's topic actually was. So why are you talking about this particular reason? Why is it important? You have to make sure it's detailed and you're showing your own knowledge there. And then you develop it by adding this extra example or piece of evidence from your own knowledge that can make your answer just a little bit more rounded and a little bit more detailed. Key point to remember when you are structuring your answers. For each ABC sentence that you actually make, you need to refer to the wording of the question. So, for example, if the question was explain why many Scots emigrated during the 1800s, each time you need to start your ABC sentence with something like the reason, so in this case the potato blight of 1846, explain a little bit about what that reason was a reason for Scottish migration, so there's our link to our question, and then the word because. So for this example, the sentence starts, the potato blight of 1846, which was when the potato crops of Western Scotland failed and could not be used as food, was a reason for Scottish migration because, and then I would give a little bit more detail in my comment about that. You need to remember, and it is really important, that you have to follow all of the parts of our ABCD mnemonic, and you have to make sure that you include the comment. It must explain exactly why what you're talking about affected the issue. So you might know it in your head, but unless you put it down on paper really clearly, your examiner isn't going to know that you know it. So you have to make sure that these points are really obviously explained. Why have I said this, and why is it relevant to the question? Don't just assume that the person reading your answer is going to just know that this is a fact and it's right. You need to make sure that it's really clearly organised and really clearly signposted for the examiner. So, as an example question, explain the reasons for Scottish migration between 1830 and 1939, which is the topic, start and end date. Worth 8 marks, so remember we have to say 8 things. We're going to start with our answer point. You can put an introduction sentence if you like as well. You don't necessarily need to do that, but it is sometimes just quite nice to frame your answers with an introduction sentence by saying something like, there are many reasons why people migrated, or whatever your question is going to be. So we start off our answer here. One reason for Scottish migration was the Highland clearances. So that's what I'm talking about. There's my point. My knowledge about my point then comes next, which was when landlords forcibly evicted Scottish tenants as it was more profitable to have sheep on the land instead of crofters. I'm then introducing my because point. So this was a reason for Scottish migration because, and then my comment. It caused many Highland Scots to become both homeless and unemployed at once, and so had no choice but to migrate elsewhere in order to survive. So that's really clearly saying this is why this is relevant and this is why I'm talking about it. I then develop it by adding in some key details about something like some moved to urban areas, others to England, or abroad to places like Canada. If you can remember in this, you could give it a really clear example like the planned towns that were organised and built. Some examples are things like Ullapool and things like that, and then you could add that information in. You could specifically say what they went to do, so they moved to the factory work, whatever you want to do to develop your answer. So for our example question then, we start off with our introduction sentence. There are many reasons why Scots migrated between 1830 and 1939. It's not necessarily needed, but it's a really nice way of framing your answer and just making it really clear in your head what you're trying to answer and what you're trying to write about. So we start with our first reason in our pink box here. It's the same one that we did as an example about the Highland clearances, and you can see where we've got our A, B, C and D coming in. So our A starts with one reason for Scottish migration was the Highland clearances, which was when landlords forcibly evicted Scottish tenants as it was more profitable to have sheep on the land instead of crofters. This is our A part. We've said what we're talking about, we've made the point, and we've given some knowledge about it as well. This was a reason for Scottish migration because, that's our because point. It caused many Highland Scots to become both homeless and unemployed at once, and so had no choice but to migrate elsewhere in order to survive. So this is our comment as well. Some moved to urban areas, others to England or abroad to places like Canada. And that's our development. We could have said about planned towns and things in there as well, like Ullapool and things, but if you haven't done that and that's the basic that you've got, then that's fine. Our next box then, our light blue one, is a second reason. So we're talking about the potato blight here. A second reason for Scottish migration was the potato blight of 1846. So there's our point, and then we're giving our knowledge about what this actually is, which was when the potato crops of Western Scotland failed and could not be used as food. This was a reason for Scottish migration because, so there's our because point, many Scots relied on potatoes for food, and if they did not migrate, they faced starvation. So that's our because and into our comment. Our develop point then is that this pushed people off the land due to the lack of food and employment when the landowners went bankrupt and forced them off the land. So that's our development there. Third point, or a third reason that we're making then, is a third reason for Scottish migration was coercion, such as being offered cheap or free land in countries such as Canada. So that's a shorter one. This was a reason for Scottish migration because, and in our comment, many Scots would never have had such opportunities for land ownership in Scotland due to the unemployment or low wages, so they left Scotland. There's no development point on that, so we would have to look to add one. So, task for you to do. Starting off with the third point, see if you can put an example or a developed point into it, and copy the example points that are there, 1, 2 and 3. Then you're going to finish the answer to give a model explain question. And if you want to, you can highlight it or put some different colours or put the letters above each point that you're making so you can really clearly see where each point actually is. Remember, the question is explain the reasons for Scottish migration between 1830 and 1939, and because it's worth 8 marks, you've already got 2 3/4 of one, so that means you're going to have to finish off your third reason with your development point and then add another 5 things, using your notes from issue 1 to help you to see if you can finish that off. Once you've finished your explain question, either post it in the team, email it to your teacher, or upload it to the assignment tab. Any questions that you have, obviously feel free to ask. And basically that's explain questions.